Today we discuss a topic at the center of the pricing concept, economic value to the customer. We're going to talk about a few things. First, what is the economic value to the customer? And second, how to determine EVC. To motivate today's topic, I'm going to use the cotton industry as an example to examine how EVC is generated and how to quantify EVC. To start, I want you to get some background knowledge about the cotton industry. Here's an interesting podcast from Planet Money of NPR on cotton and t-shirts. Click on icon to listen to the podcast and then come back to the video. This podcast lasts about 21 minutes. So welcome back. As you have heard from the podcast, a t-shirt actually goes around the globe from cotton in the United States eventually to the t-shirt, back to the United States. What's fascinating here is how different components of the supply chain are interlinked with each other. Our example will focus on the start of this supply chain, on how cotton gets out of the field. Next, please click on a short YouTube video clip and watch how cotton is harvested from the field using machines. Welcome back. It's a fascinating machine, isn't it? So my question for you is, let's say you are a salesperson for John Deere, and you're selling this cotton baler to farmers. And I can also tell you that this machine costs about $300,000 each. So my question for you is, how do you justify such a high price tag? And when you think about it, the company makes a profit, and the profit cannot be created without revenue. And the revenue cannot be created unless customers want it. And here, the central concept of EVC, or the value creation for the customers, is what makes the customers want the product. And the first step is to figure out where does the value come from. So in the case of this machine, if you have paid attention to the information provided in the video, it mentions that this cotton baler replaces the old way to harvest cotton, which requires 4 people, 2 vehicles, one for harvesting, one for baling. And the speed is much slower, let's say at 75 acres a day versus the new machine at 100 acres a day. And the new way requires 1 person, 1 machine, and it moves faster through the field. And in addition, there may be some cost-effective advantages because the single machine may require less maintenance. So as you can see, this new cotton baler is operating more efficiently. So that efficiency creates value. What else can you think of? Well, in this case, we can see at least there's significant savings from labor. The old way requires 4 people. The new way requires only 1 person. And this is scaled work. 3 people would cost the farm somewhere between $200,000 to $300,000. That itself is significant savings. As you can see, at a $300,000 price tag, the labor saving alone may be able to cover that price tag. So in this lecture, our goal is to introduce a way where we can quantify such values, ultimately how much we can charge the product in the market. So this is one example of how values are created. What are the other ways that value may be created for the customers? Here are a few examples on value creation and how we may be able to quantify it. The cotton baler moves faster, and if it can harvest 30% more cotton fields within the same amount of time, then this cotton machine creates value. It's from productivity. And as we mentioned, from saving of labor. In modern chicken farms, chickens are raised indoors with a very high population density. And when you put chickens together, they tend to fight. And fighting leads to death and low yields in the chicken farms. So the product is contact lens for chickens. So once the chickens are wearing these contact lenses, they cannot see each other very clearly. As a result, they no longer fight with each other. In this case, the value creation comes from higher yields in chicken farms. And the contact lens company for chickens, therefore, can decide how much their products are worth for the customers based on how much they can improve the yields at the chicken farms. So if we talk about productivity and higher yields, sometimes it's not just about that. It's the products actually last longer. For example, Yeti has created various containers in the consumer market, and their products look like they can last 100 years. So long lasting can create value. And finally, in the pharmaceutical markets, medicines. If a medicine can improve people's life quality, if a medicine can make people live longer, if a medicine can cure a disease like hepatitis C, how much does the improvement in quality of life worth for the patients? This is a question that pharmaceutical companies are always pondering to put in numbers the value for the quality of life. So as you can see, a value proposition is a reason to buy the product, and whatever the value might be, it can be the product works better, looks better, tastes better, lasts longer, it's safer, it's easier to get. Some reason to buy. So to give this an official definition, the economic value to the customer, or EVC, is the maximum amount a customer should be willing to pay, assuming that he or she is fully informed about the benefits of the product and the offerings of the competitors. So EVC here is a number, not customer actually be willing to pay, but a customer should be willing to pay if they know what the benefits are in comparison with competitors. So put this in a formula, EVC is equal to reference value plus differentiation value. Here, reference value usually refers to the price of the perceived closest substitute. Differentiation value is the difference between the value of your product versus the closest substitute. And the differentiation value can be positive or negative. Here's a visual illustration of EVC analysis. At the bottom, we have the reference value. So this is basically the cost of the closest substitute or the competing product. Your product may work better. That creates a positive differentiation value, so it goes up. On the other hand, the differentiation value can be negative. So your product is not necessarily performing better than your competitors. The differentiation value can be negative, so it drops by that much. At the end of the day, the EVC is basically the reference value plus the positive differentiation value and minus the negative differentiation value. This span is the EVC. Within this paradigm, the first thing we want to find out is the reference value. And to calculate the reference value, we need to know what is the reference product or the perceived substitute. Let me show you a short video clip. Please click on the link provided to watch the video and come back. So in this video, we have seen a DIY product that is a substitute for dry cleaning. And these are dry cleaning sheets. You put them together with the clothes in a dryer. So you can dry clean the clothes that you cannot wash using water at home. So in this case, what is the product representing the reference value? That's right, dry cleaning. Okay, so what's interesting is it is implausible that this product is going to perform better than a dry cleaning for cleaning purposes. However, it doesn't have to be. So the first important takeaway is your differentiation value can be entirely negative, and the EVC is actually below the reference value. Is that a problem? Not at all in this case, because the company is going to charge a much lower price on the product than dry cleaning. A few years later, a competing product was introduced to the market. It's called Woolite. And Woolite does a very similar job as dry out. And it also promotes itself as saving hundreds of dollars on dry cleaning in minutes. So my question for you is, after Woolite is introduced into the market, which product serves as the reference product for dry out? Obviously, the perceived closest substitute would shift from dry cleaning to Woolite. And you might see here, what's interesting is Woolite actually positioned itself against dry cleaning instead of dry out. This again goes back to the EVC calculation. You want to use various marketing and packaging maneuvers so that customers would use that more expensive option as the reference value for your product. Okay, a few more examples. When Xerox first introduced a copy machine into the market, it was a revolutionary product. In a historical perspective, what represents the reference value? Well, this takes us way back. At the time, when you want to produce a duplicate of a document, you have to hire someone to type it up. So at the beginning, Xerox was using each piece of paper typed up with labor cost considered as reference value. As you can imagine, hiring someone to type up a piece of paper is insanely expensive. Xerox was able to command a super high EVC at that point. And similarly, let's say you're introducing a video conferencing software. What creates your reference value? Well, in this case, what's interesting is if you look at the business markets and consumer markets, these two segments potentially have different reference values. The business market may care about things that the consumer market does not care about, for example, security. And the business market may be willing to pay money for performance. And on the consumer side, there are free video conferencing services such as Skype already in the market. It will be a tough market to fight. So the EVC on the two markets are vastly different. You might actually see the pricing model in the actual market reflects what we have just discussed. The takeaway, reference values vary by segments. If a high EVC allows companies to charge a high price, is it the higher the merrier for EVC? What is the risk of a sky-high EVC? One potential risk is a high EVC tends to attract new market entrants. For example, in the United States, the razor market has been dominated by Gillette for the past 100 years. And the razors are actually very expensive comparing to the production cost. For a long time, because of Gillette's dominant market power and the deep pockets for marketing spending, Gillette was the de facto market monopolist in the razor market. However, the Internet of Things has democratized many markets, and razor being one of them. Some of you actually may be using this new product. Dollar Shaving Club was able to enter the market at a much lower pricing point and still making money. That's because Gillette had a very high EVC and market dominance, and they have been charging a very high price. A high EVC attracts new market entrants. A new market entrance tends to bring down the EVC and bring down profits significantly. A couple years ago, Dollar Shaving Club was sold for $1 billion. Next, I'm going to show you how to calculate an EVC. Atlantic Computer has developed software that allows their servers to host twice as much web space as its rivals. How should they price this new software server combination? Relatively to buying two servers from Atlantic's competitor, by buying one doubly efficient server from Atlantic, a firm could save $4,000 in labor cost, $500 in electricity, and $1,500 in software licenses. This suggests that the differentiation value relative to the closest competitive offering is $6,000. So the price of a server from the competitor is $3,400. So the question is, what is the EVC of an Atlantic computer server? Pause the video to see if you can figure this out. So here's how we calculate this. The key part that is easy to miss is one Atlantic's computer replaces two servers of Atlantic's competitor. When you calculate the EVC, the reference value for the competitor is not $3,400. It should be 3,400 times 2 because it replaces two servers. So that's $6,800. And then plus the differentiation value in this case is $6,000. the EVC for Atlantic Computer is $12,800. Next, a slightly more complicated example. Alathon 25. In 1995, DuPont introduced Alathon 25, a polyethylene resin designed to compete with other resins in the manufacture of flexible pipe. Tests indicate that Alathon 25 pipe had failure rates of 3% compared to 8% for the competition. Farmers purchased Alathon pipe as part of below-ground irrigation system. The common substitute for Alathon pipe was a pipe made of an off-grade resin selling for $6.50 per 100 feet. Labor cost of replacing a failed pipe is about $60. Pipe failures, if not detected quickly, can also damage crops. The damage could range from $0 if the plants were mature to $40 when vulnerable seedlings were washed out. Young, poorly rooted crops are in place approximately 20% of the time that the irrigation system is in use. So what was the product's economic value per 100 feet for the farmers? Pause the video and write down your answer. Welcome back. So the key part of this calculation is to realize that everything in the reference value is associated with the change in the failure rate. That is, between an 8% failure rate from the computation to a 3% failure rate. So every component of the reference value is from 8% minus 3% equals 5% less failures. And now let's take the steps to figure out the EVC. Here's the calculation. First, the reference value comes from the off-grade resin. Second, we need to figure out the differentiation value. The differentiation value comes from the labor savings. Second, less crop damages. And the third one is easy to miss. It's replacement savings. That's because if you do not have to replace damaged pipes, then you do not have to purchase those pipes. So this part is different from reference value. It is from savings of the replacement cost. So these three components are the differentiation value. Let's put in the numbers. The reference value is $6.50 per 100 feet for off-grade resin. Labor savings is $60 times 5% reduction in failure rate, so that's $3. Crop damages is $40 times only 20% when it's seedlings, it causes damage. The other 80% would cause no damage, so it's zero. So here you have 40% seedling damage times 20% of the occasions that happens, and then times 5% reduction in failure rate, that's 40 cents. Finally, the replacement savings is $6.50, the cost of off-grade resin pipe, times 5%. That's 32.5 cents. When we add everything together, we have the EVC for Athlon 25 pipes. To implement a EVC analysis, the first thing we need to do is to identify what benefits our products provide and identify the closest competitive offering and calculate its price. If you remember earlier, for Xerox, in the beginning it was very profitable because the EVC was decided on a per copy basis comparing to human typewriters. And the next is to identify potential sources of differentiation value. Here, it is important to have a thorough understanding of the process with a customer's input. Very often, business can do this with early adopters of their products and hire them as consultants so that the company can observe the process that the consumers use the product and get inputs from their early customers, which help them better gauge the value they create for their customers. We mentioned that EVC is the maximum amount of money that customers should be willing to pay. Should you price at the EVC? Generally speaking, the answer is no. We'll talk more about willingness to pay in the next topic. It is important to know that a company should communicate the EVC to your customers. Do not assume customers know EVC. Generally speaking, they don't, or they underestimate it. Second, as we mentioned earlier, different customer segments may have different EVCs, so more marketing research will help you figure that out. Educating customers is particularly important when the product delivers a stream of benefits over time, because usually your end users are not able to foresee the future and see the long-term benefits of the product so easily. The second is the product's costs represent only a small portion of the purchase price. And it's important because the perceived value of the product may be low if customer thinks the product is cheap to make. This is true for most of the prescription drugs in the market. While the production cost might be low, some of the drugs offer huge benefits for people's health. In addition, there's significant fixed cost associated with research and development of these new drugs. So in this case, it's important to educate the customers about the EVC, diverting their focus from costs. And finally, this is very important. That is, the fact that your customers are not buying your product by itself is not a reason to cut the price. It may be a reason to change your marketing program to justify the price. That is, are you sufficiently educating your customer about the value that your product has generated for the customers? That's our discussion on EVC. Thank you. I'll see you next time.